All right, we have a quorum. We'll call the first meeting of June to order for the Town of Liberty Grove Town Board. The clerk will note all supervisors are present, in addition to the clerk treasurer and the administrator. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. If you have a cell phone, if you wouldn't mind putting a vibrator off so as not to interrupt the meeting. And a reminder to the supervisors to speak into their microphones. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right, we need to approve the agenda. There are no committee reports, so I suggest that we take that one out.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as suggested.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. We have the minutes of May 16th. Are there any additions or corrections to those?
I'll move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that motion carries. Payment of bills. Are there any questions? Excuse me.
Well, I'll move that we pay the bills as presented.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the bills as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries. Administrators report. Bud?
Back in May, I met with the land trust on the Grandview Hill in Ellison Bay, and they explained some of their, what they'll be doing there. They're going to be knocking down some of the weeds and promoting some natural growth in there through spraying and mowing. We'll just be mowing north or south of the road that goes up to the septic system there. They're hoping to be able to take care of all of it themselves. If they can't, we'll maybe help out with some of their mowing. Paving is completed. We paved 4.5 miles of town road, which is quite an accomplishment over what we used to do. We used to be lucky to get 1 mile in per year. The chip seal bid is in. That'll be presented tonight. We got about just over 6 miles of road for chip sealing. I went to the county unit, the town association, on the 17th. The emergency services director was there. He had contacted us earlier about possibly getting some money toward that snow event where we had a couple feet of snow. We hadn't heard anything from him, and he gave his presentation, and I asked him that after that if we were how that program was going. And he said, well, we didn't really qualify because the area needed so many $1 million of expenses for the snow, which we didn't meet, and nobody met as far as the threshold that the town also needed. And the one thing we did need was did meet that it was a unusual occurrence. That criteria was met. The primary is on the 5th, or was on the 15th. The election now for the Senate seat that's open is next week on the 12th. Absentee voting is available here until Friday at 4 o'clock. Working on the calming signs for Ellison Bay with the DOT. Finally, I'm able to get a letter of application in to them. We've gone back and forth over the last few weeks on it. And it looks like they'll approve one for each end of Ellison Bay. Shredding and recycling is the 23rd from 9 to 1. The staircase is in process. Money is going to be coming in from the Dive Club and the foundation where Mr. Tuscany got his donations from. We have the deed for the Clinky Garage, and the lot across from the Viking closed on Friday. We have that now too.
Any questions? Then going on to public input, it's the opportunity to address the board on any subject you would like and also on any agenda subject. Any general comments anybody would like to make? Please. Yes, please.
Carol Fitzgerald Ash, 12266 Fitzgerald Road. I hadn't planned on speaking tonight, but I'm just going to give an update on the Ellison Bay beautification project. Less than 5 months ago, we met initially, and then I think we approached the board in February for 3 objectives. One was to create an environment that encourages safe pedestrian use, and some of that is involving the slowing down. And we do have a petition started for some crosswalks. We don't know how effective that will be, but we thought, I have been down at the mural site, which I'll address in a minute, and boy, getting out onto 42 and trying to cross in Ellison Bay is pretty scary. So anyway, we have initiated that. Establishing a town center where people can congregate and collect information was number 2. We're hoping that maybe that parking lot across from the Viking there will be something along those lines, and we would love to help with anything that we could in there. Number 3, I'm super excited to tell you that we raised almost $5,000 to help beautify Ellison Bay, and the mural has been started. A lot of work has gone in. Many hours on the side of Kubi's place. Mary Ellen Sisolek and Jill Harding have started that. A lot of prep work has gone in before that, but it has started, and there is some green space, and a butterfly garden will also go in, and then another mural is being planned on the side of that Viking Annex building. I don't know what they call it, but private funds have been donated for all of that. We're not using any of it except for materials. So it's exciting, and it looks great. I don't know if anybody has seen it, but it's starting to take shape. And we're hoping that it will spur on some other outdoor art projects. So, does anybody have any
Great,
questions
thank you.
about that?
We're still waiting to hear back from DOT about a meeting on the crosswalks. I don't, it's anything. Nothing's come of that yet, so.
Will a petition be of any help with citizens? I mean, we're just trying to do anything to,
Well, it won't hurt.
the petition, we met yesterday, and it really just, we thought going for 3 might be, well, actually 2 extras, but repainting the one across from the Pioneer, and then one from the Parkside to the beach, and one from Sutra to wherever, but thinking that really the post office is a public entity, and people are trying to cross to get there. So, anyway, those were we just decided to put examples of what we thought would be useful, so.
Any other questions, comments?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay,
Doing a good
Thank you
job.
for all the work. Any other general comments? Anybody wish to speak on an agendized item? Carl? 12, okay. Anybody else? 12. Anybody else, please? Okay, then going on, excuse me. Consider Door County invasive species cost sharing program.
Hello. A little shorter than the last speaker. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I am basically here to give you an update on the invasive species program with the Door County Soil and Water Conservation Department. To remind you, I am Krista Lutsky. I am the Door County Invasive Species Program owner within the Conservation Department. A lot has happened since the ordinance was passed and the last time that I was here to see you at the board. Earlier this year, we have developed a policy, which I included in that large amount of paperwork for you to just take a look at. There's really no action that you need to do, at least just discuss today. We had, as the Door County Invasive Species Team, which is all of the natural resource groups that are present throughout the county, which is the Nature Conservancy, Soil and Water, the DNR for the state natural areas as well as the wildlife areas, Door County Land Trust, Regis Sanctuary, and the UW Extension. We are the fiscal agents for this group of Door County Invasive Species team, and we had received donations in excess of grants that we had received, meaning that we did not need to use some donations to meet the match needs of the grants that we are utilizing this year. So to maintain the intent of Door County Invasive Species team, we have put together, and the LCC board has decided to approve this policy on a county cost share program specifically for municipalities within the county that have adopted a noxious weed ordinance for 1, 2, 3, or 4 of our priority species. Those species are Phragmites, Japanese knotweed, common cutleaf teasel, and wild parsnip. Those 4 were selected because of the amount of money that was invested by the Door County Soil and Water Conservation Department. So with that, we have also signed an agreement or have an understanding with the County Highway Department. There's no formal agreement, so that was misspoken, but we do have an understanding with the County Highway Department to do treatments along the county road right-of-ways for these 4 priority species, so long as our office administers this program, and we have already begun treatment. So last fall, we had Nature Care Ecological conducting Phragmites treatments along county road right-of-ways, including the state highway. And this year already, we have seen treatments of wild parsnip, again along the county road right-of-ways. He finished the first phase this year with wild parsnip. The entire county had 77 miles of treatment done for wild parsnip. And last year for Phragmites, it was a total of 23 acres throughout the entire county. So all of that is just to highlight that we are here to continue to assist the municipalities. I had promised earlier that if you pass this, I won't disappear. So now we're at a good point that I wanted to reintroduce this program and introduce you to the municipal cost share. We do have 2 LTEs that are totally grant funded within our office that will be conducting inventory throughout the season. And they will also be working with private landowners specifically for wild parsnip management. So during our inventory, we will do road surveys. So we will not be able to go on the property unless we are given express permission. But as we see the wild parsnip, we plan visits and we provide them with best management practices, taking into consideration their financial situation, their health, what they're willing to do, and what more we can provide. So what this is getting to Phragmites. It is up to you how you want to run your invasive species program. If you want to focus on one particular species or all of these species, we're fine with that. We just want to know what kind of help that you would need to implement something. So this program has already begun with the town of Sturgeon Bay. I have already started working with the town of Nasswappi and the town of Sevastopol with this county cost share program. And this was just introduced in March. And I do have 4 more meetings with other town boards with the remainder of this month. I do have an inventory for you. It's very small, which is very exciting. There's very little Phragmites along the shorelines any longer. Thankfully, through those large treatments that we've done throughout 2011 up to 2016 and high water, we were able to get a very good control of Phragmites along the shoreline. There are some Phragmites that we found along the county road right-of-ways, which we've already treated. And this year, we will be doing this inventory on all town roads and county roads again, because we do anticipate doing another wave of Phragmites treatments. So just to briefly touch on this policy, we will pay or reimburse the town 50% of the cost of treatment up to $1,000. And to give you an idea, in 2014, the county actually paid $7,800 just for Phragmites treatments within Liberty Grove. And the last treatment that we had conducted last year, it was $145. So now is the time to maintain, because the cost is substantially less than what it could be. Any questions? That was a lot of information.
Krista, so relatively speaking, it seems, I mean, the chart with the various invasive species, it's, it doesn't seem like much, I mean, it probably is. Relative to other municipalities, how do we fare in terms of how invaded we've been?
With regards to wild parsnip, you are on the better side. So when you go to 4257, there's a very clear indication that that is being spread by mowers. So in addition to this agreement that we have with the County Highway Department, I am also presenting invasive species awareness and how to properly clean equipment to reduce the spread of invasive species. That is now part of our HR orientation. So that is going to be on a continual basis. So on that 4257 route, that is the largest chunk that you have of wild parsnip. The worst culprit is in Union, and near
where?
Union, the town of Union. So Southern Door is where we spend a lot of our time. With regards to Phragmites, though, your population, simply because of the shoreline, was greater than the rest of the county, with the exception of Jacksonport. They had, considering the size of the town and the amount of acres that they had. So the very first year of treatment that we did Phragmites for them was about $10,000.
And just playing devil's advocate, taxpayer says, why should we have to pay any taxpayer dollars to take care of this? Why, just let it happen? If it's natural, why do we even call it invasive? Why should we even bother?
So invasive species, by definition, they are plants, they're green, but it's the way that they, their habit, the way that they grow. They invade an area, creating a monoculture, outcompeting all of the native species. So while you might have something that's green, and some people do like the look of some of these species, you're actually reducing biodiversity. And especially in Liberty Grove and northern Door County, that is extremely, extremely important to maintain. Because in 2015, a large amount of land was designated as a Ramsar wetland of international importance. So that's including, there's been the Everglades that have also had that designation. There's some wetlands in Africa and in Thailand that have the designation, and even rice paddies in China. So biodiversity is extremely important here for the species that are present. This monoculture changes the hydrology with respect to Phragmites. So if you have a huge stand, everything that you see above ground is below ground. And you create this basket weave that fish are not able to spawn in or even maneuver through. So you're reducing fisheries in that manner. And you're also reducing the amount of birds that would feed off of this. I mean, red-winged blackbirds like it, but they like everything, to be honest. So you're just creating, so you're going to be losing something that Door County offers, and the reason why people come here in the first place. And that's not even touching on the economic impact. You're going to reduce the value of your property. If you can't get to the beach, you can't see it. And you're going to be reducing the value of your land.
Yeah, thank you. That was very well put. Again, playing devil's advocate then, what about the argument that some taxpayers could make to say, well, you know, it's a losing battle? I mean, has there been any success such that we don't have to continue to do this? I mean, nature's nature, and it seems like we're just going to have to be constantly throwing money at this problem.
You will be, and I'll be forward with you. You will have to constantly put money to this project, and it's going to be a continued effort. The difference is the amount of money that you're going to be putting into this project. So at this point in time, Door County Soil and Water and that large grant that the DNR had held previously knocked back a lot of these species to a point where it's actually financially manageable. And the reason why we developed this cost share program was because we didn't want to enforce anything that could put someone in some financial strain. So when I say it's up to the town on how they want to run it, Sevastopol requested donations from their community, and they're self-sustaining, much like the town of Jacksonport is. Nassau just decided to treat all of it for the next 3 years, and from that point, landowners will have to manage it themselves. And the town of Sturgeon Bay is doing a more targeted approach, where they are requesting donations from landowners that have confirmed inventory of these species. So however you want to run this program, whatever you think works best is what we're here to support. And we want to contribute financially, since we did put this, I don't want to say strain, because it's actually going to be really good. We did put this out there as a resolution to maintain the work that we have put into it for quite a long time.
How much is being spent in all of Door County?
In all of Door County, right now, I only have 4 municipalities that have requested the county cost share, and they want it specifically for Phragmites. So we have not inventoried that yet. It is not quite time. So our LTEs will be inventorying in late July for Phragmites, and then we provide that detailed inventory to the town. And some have asked that we put the request for proposal together, and we will put that in the paper for them. And it just depends on the proposals that we receive on what the cost is going to be. One particular company has been really prevalent within the county, and that's Nature Care Ecological. And they are holding the contract currently with Sevastopol and Nassau in the town of Sturgeon Bay. And their prices are pretty low in comparison, simply because he's local.
Krista, you were responsive to my question about the never-ending battle, but let me rephrase again, though. Have you demonstrable achievements to say, look, if we hadn't done what we've done, these species would be many more square miles covering the areas and stuff? There has been success, in other words.
There has been a lot of success.
Great.
So with the treatments that we had conducted within the DNR grant, we, as Soil and Water, actually expanded upon that to reach private property. So all of this individual landowner outreach that we had done over the years was specifically done by Door County Soil and Water. The DNR had only done their conservation opportunity areas, so we expanded beyond that. We have treated 2 consecutive times all 300 miles of shoreline for Phragmites, with a reduction of about 95%. And then in 2016, we were able to get some additional treatments along the shorelines, and I'm really hard-pressed to find anything on the shore, with the exception of little sturgeon. And that's just because there was a large area that was missed.
Excellent.
I have a question. What about, and I'm asking this
for my neighbor who has asked me. He has a 2.7 acre wildlife pond, which actually the county did after a mining, gravel mining thing. And up until 2 years ago, I've been watching it, there were no Phragmites. And then 2 years ago, I saw the first sprouts. And now it's starting to turn into, as only Phragmites can, a thicket of it. And he said, who do I contact? What do I do? What is your advice to the individual property owner? He's not on the shore.
Right.
But this is a wildlife, it's visited by all kinds of wildlife, which is probably where the Phragmites came from. And it will be overtaken. It's a relatively shallow pond.
Depending on the size of the patch or the whatever amount of Phragmites that he has on his pond, what we typically recommend is they either hire a contractor or obtain the certification themselves. Because that certification to get the restricted use pesticide is only $52.50. And it's a booklet that is provided to you by DATCAP, and it's a study guide, and you have practice quizzes throughout the entire book. And then you can take the test at any of their designated locations, and one of them is Green Bay. So then that certification is good for 5 years. And if you wanted to partner up with some neighbors and treat some additional Phragmites, you are able to do that so long as you do not charge. If you try to charge, then you turn into a contractor and you need a license. So that's one recommendation that we have. Another is you could get a 2,4-D. It's not going to be as successful as this restricted use pesticide, but that is something that you can purchase without certification and is safe to use near water. What's extremely important is you must use an aquatic pesticide whenever you are treating Phragmites, no matter what. Because of the half-life of that chemical, it does not stay in the system as long as others will. It's also safe with the aquatic habitat too. Or he can bundle cut and treat with like a Roundup on top. It just depends on the size and the scale of it.
Well, right now, the patch is probably, in its worst location, maybe 30 feet in diameter. But you can see all sorts of little ones.
All those
starting.
runners, yeah. I would advise not to mow, though. I don't know if that
Oh,
person,
no.
okay.
That just makes the runners go crazy.
It works, yeah, it makes it worse, Yep.
Have you had any luck with the local person who hasn't, previously had not allowed anybody on his property to do anything?
I haven't been able to reach this individual for quite some time. And with respect to that individual, if you did want to enforce your ordinance, we can talk about something first. The whole point of the ordinance, as I alluded to way back when, is not to punish people, it's just to get this under control and managed. Since I do have LTEs, they are both aquatic certified. And if that is a problem, we can definitely work something out.
Okay, any other questions anybody has? Good, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Krista.
All right, going on to number 9, consider recommendation of Highway Committee, the chip seal bid.
There was one bid received for the chip sealing. The total for all 4 projects was $123,866, which is approximately $8,000 under our budget number. We've got Lakeview Road from Mink River Road to Wildwood, Highview Road from Mink River Road to 42, Humbug from Highview Road north for about 3/10 of a mile, and Grove Road from Highway 57 to the east end. And that is a total of approximately, right around 6 miles.
Any questions?
And the recommendation to the board was to accept.
How much is the total cost?
$123,866.
And that's what's in the budget?
It's
Budget was $132,050.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept the bid from Scott Construction.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion?
Who seconded that?
Gary?
Gary.
Gary.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Change in the intersection of Waters End Road and Highway 42.
We've been looking at this intersection for a number of years. We met there with Public Service at least twice, if not 3 or 4 times, because there's a pole on the southwest corner that's got a lot of stuff on it coming from 42 and the Beach Road and points beyond. So their final recommendation was to talk to the DOT about changing the intersection. We did meet with Mr. Ashour a couple weeks ago, and he referred it to Scott Nelson at the DOT. The idea is to bring that acute angle back as far as possible toward a 90-degree angle because of the sharpness of the intersection. When you pull out from the west and stop, you've got a hard time seeing to the south, and any trucks that would be coming from the south to make that turn. It's a difficult one if you have a large truck, especially a fire truck. Nelson of the DOT said that normally, if you do an intersection where the alignment to the opposing road on the other side would be changed, they would not approve it, but considering the uniqueness of this situation, they would approve that deviation because of the safety issues and a more convenient site corner there. We'd have to get a permit to work in the highway, state right-of-way, and a number of other items there. We've got sewer and water under the road. There's a right-of-way issue with the town. We don't have that marked at this point. So the initial action would be to get an engineer in there and draw something up to present to the DOT as far as moving the intersection on the west side.
No, Bud, when you're talking about the intersection with the acute angle, are you talking about where Beach Road meets Highway 42?
No.
No,
Further south.
Water's End
Water's End, okay,
coming straight from the water,
okay.
from the west. That's the one where the squad car went in many years ago, if you remember that one. They got a call on the Beach Road and they turned a little too short and ended up in the drink, so. I guess the initial thing would be to get an engineer involved and get some rough ideas before we go into any detailed drawings on it we'd have to get, I have some information from the treatment plant on where the utility district, where the pipes are there. And then talk a little more with the public service about those wires. They did have some suggestions a while back, but until we know exactly where things can go, it's just conjecture at this point.
What do we have in the budget for engineering study?
I did not look that up. I don't have that in front of me tonight. I can't say.
But I followed the instruction that John had given Janet to tell us to go and look at it. I was there for 30 seconds. I turned around and I was going to go south off of
Pretty
Waters
tough.
End. It's impossible.
Pretty tough.
But I wasn't there for 30 seconds, and the truck decided to try to turn. And I had to back up in order for the truck to even make it in there, let alone then try to maneuver out of there, because it's very, very difficult to see because of the acute angle that's there. Will there be some consideration for sort of maybe making it just a little wider in addition to sort of lopping off that corner? So that a car that might be there doesn't have to back up for another car to turn in, or maybe the other car turning in has to wait for the car to leave?
We'll have to do that. Depends on right-of-way,
Yeah.
lines and whatnot, the DOT with the road right-of-way there. There's a 66-foot right-of-way on the highway. Mr. Miller on the southwest corner wants to put a fence up for noise between his parcel and the highway, so we know there's 33 feet from the center line to do that. And then I didn't go into the town right away. We'd have to have that marked by Baldwin or somebody.
Pat Hockers at that meeting brought up the fact that, in 5 years, we looked at doing storm sewers and that to the south. That area, every time there's a heavy rain, just washes out in the ditch down there. And we had talked about a pedestrian right away, I believe, at that point in time. That kind of,
Sidewalks were looked at and
Yeah.
everything.
that kind of went down like a wounded duck, and I'm wondering if it would make sense to expand this thing to take a whole, a look at that whole area. I would assume that drainage problem falls to the state, because it's well within their right of way. And I'm not sure they've done much with it.
No, they're not gonna put out much of any money for it. They're gonna have us pay for it.
Yeah, there's drainage problems all along the state highway that
Yeah.
they don't do anything about.
Wouldn't the drain though be responsibility of Sister Bay?
No,
Because
it's,
the sewer goes all past there.
right, but we're talking like a storm sewer. Well, there basically is one there now, but I don't think it empties into the bay. And it just dead ends down there.
Yeah, and I put all that rock in there,
Yeah.
that coarse rock on the east side of the road, so it's going down that way, and I thought there was a crossover somewhere. There is one further down toward JJ's than the Outworks, but as far as back to the north from that one, I'm not sure. We have to do some work on that other one I just mentioned, because it
plugged.
plugs up with debris, and I don't think it's ever been cleaned out.
Is the motion in order, for example, then to refer it back to the highway committee to include something like a crosswalk and then a storm sewer as part of the proposal?
Sounds like you need to redo that whole intersection.
Yeah, I would think that would be in order.
Before any motions are made, I would like either included in the motion, or before you even make it, I'd like to know where the money's gonna come from. It's
Yeah.
not gonna be an inexpensive project.
I didn't look at it as far as that. I was just kind of trying to get a direction of if the board wanted to go. Also, we're gonna have to repave Waters End Road and the hill before too long, so that could be part of this whole deal
Wrap it all up.
too. At one point, we had little berms or whatever they might be called, made out of asphalt, so the water wouldn't go into the house on the south side where Hans Christian used to live. And we got that corrected, so the water went straight down, but those have kind of been shaved off with a snowplow now, and they're not there anymore, so all that should be looked at too in that whole scheme of things right there.
Well, it was also mentioned that a left turn onto 42 from Beach Road is almost an impossibility.
Oh, yeah. It is,
The
yeah.
right turn from 42 onto Beach Road is
That's
almost an
terrible.
impossibility
Yeah.
too.
That's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah, I think we ought to take a long, serious look at that whole, intersection in there, including the one coming out from Beach Road, which is, I don't know how many people have turned on that thing, but it's just like, and if you're not careful, you're gonna get clipped
Yeah, yeah.
on that corner, so.
Do you suppose we would have enough time between now and budget to look at it so that we would have a decent ballpark figure to budget for this for 2019?
Yeah, maybe the first thing to do would be to get a cost estimate from an engineer like Bodwin or somebody on
Yeah.
what they would
Sure.
want to
Yeah.
work that out.
Yeah,
And then we'd have a dollar figure, and then we could see where we could get some money for that.
yep,
And then when you do the project, which wouldn't be till next year at the very earliest
Yeah,
anyway, when
yeah.
you can look at it at budget time.
yeah. Maybe phase it.
Well, I'll move then that we refer the changing of the intersection at Waters End Road and Highway 42 to the Highway Committee to expand that proposal to include the Beach Road intersection, storm drainage, and perhaps a crosswalk as all part of the budget consideration for 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. I'll make a motion to request the administrator to find out from an engineering firm the approximate cost of, doing that sort of project.
Right, I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. Anything else? Okay, then let's go on to consider resolution 3-18, ECMAR report for the utility district, number 1. Bud?
Mike Skell was supposed to be here to
Oh.
answer any questions. We do this every year. There's a report that they file with the state for rate studies. And in the report, it just indicates what we have on hand for funds, what we have charged. It's an annual report that gets filed.
Is this the one where they get an F on?
Yeah, but we get an A on it now. We used to get an F, but now we get an A. Our utility district does.
And the utility district pays for this, correct?
There's no cost.
Oh, okay.
It just, in order for the report to go in, the town has to pass the resolution.
I'll move that we approve resolution 3-18, approving ECMAR for Liberty Grove Utility District, number 1. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Okay, going on to number 11. Consider authorization of full sewer rate study to Schenck Accounting for Utility District number 1.
The village has raised their rates and passed, have or will be passing on to the utility district those rates. In order for the utility district to charge the higher rate, it has to do a sewer, rate study. There are two ways to go. They could do a limited study or whatever it's called, which raises it only a few percentage points, 3% at the most, I believe it is, which would be fairly quick, in order to keep up with the village and get a more accurate reflection of actually what should be done on the sewer rates. It would be a full rate study. And the way it looks, the only way we're going to be able to get this done, get everything submitted, it's quite involved, is Schenck has submitted a proposal to do it for $5,000. And there's a lot of stuff they're gonna need to collect and work with the clerk and the utility district here, so that, without doing this, the utility has shown, I don't know if it's a loss, but they're not gaining any ground as far as what their income, they've got money, but their income is not keeping up with the expenses at this point, so they have to do something to get these rates up and get a better better look on their financial statements.
The annual report showed a loss
For the
for the
utility.
utility
for the
district.
utility district.
I think it's a good idea in general. It's sort of like a utility district audit almost, you know. Under the current circumstances, I think it's a good idea to get as much information on that as possible.
And when you mean current you mean the ongoing controversy about ownership?
I do.
I was gonna say, if we can get as much information as possible, when and if that does proceed into litigation, it seems that this is exactly the kind of information we
Right.
need to rely on.
Disinterested third party.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly.
I agree. Strongly.
Okay, I'll make a motion then to authorize a full sewer rate study by Schenck Accounting Firm for Utility District Number 1. Excuse me, Utility District Number 1, and that the Utility District Number 1 pay for that.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Just for everybody's information, Utility District Number 1 runs approximately from the Sister Bay Motors northward on 42, and then turns up Beach Road, and it does go up Hill Road too, am I correct? Or
Yeah, up to
Hillcrest.
Hillcrest,
Hillcrest, okay.
across Water's End and down, around the Horn, back down to the highway.
All right. And that is served by the wastewater plant in Sister Bay and the water plant, or the water facility. The rest of the town is the sanitary district, which the board happens to be the governors of, so. Okay, then going on, consider garbage collection in Liberty Grove. We have two people. Carl, you want to make a comment, please?
Yes, Carl Zopfi, 630 State Highway 42. This thing has come up, I think, about twice before, to my knowledge. And I'm a little bit confused as to what's the driving force behind this, why Liberty Grove feels the need to insert themselves as an intermediary between me and Going Garbage, which is my current trash and recyclable collector. I'd like to hear some background on this, because I don't understand why it keeps coming back, and it still has not been disposed of, either yay or nay. So this is more of a question than anything else. I'd appreciate background information.
Janet, have you a copy of that proposal that you can put up on the board?
I'm sorry.
Kathy, you want to make a comment, and then we can respond to.
Kathy Ward, 1826 East Green Road. I want to digress just a minute to express thanks to the town and the taxpayers and the workers and the contractors for the blacktop in front of, that runs in front of our house. We had no idea that that's what we would have. And that morning, when it was being laid, I took a picture and sent it to the kids that are all in their 30s and grew up on that gravel road, and one of them texted back and said, ooh, my 10-year-old self is kind of angry for the time I had to hike across Calms property to get to Green Road to rollerblade. They were excited. On the garbage collection, I don't have accurate figures, because a lot of times when I go to buy the packages of green bags, I pay cash, and about half the time I write a check, so I couldn't go back and get a specific number, but I am very positive that what we pay out of pocket right now for the green garbage bags that we then haul to Going is at least $180. So with the estimate for what the tax bill would go up, for us at any rate, we're right in line with that. We wouldn't, so for us, it would be a horse apiece rather to keep going the way we are or to be part of the more collective collection.
Okay, thank you. Any comments that anybody would like to make? Nancy, go
I
ahead.
would. I've got detailed records for our family garbage going back 10 years and more. And in 2008, the company was called Superior. I researched all of the local collection companies to find the best rate. And Superior had the best deal going, a little 2-yard dumpster, which they did not charge monthly for placement, and only charged the tipping fee. And in 2008, the Goss garbage amounted to less than $100 for the year. Fast forward a few years, a $5 Superior was sold. Advanced Disposal is now the name. I still kept up with checking locally. It's still the best deal was going. That little 2-yard dumpster jumped to $5 a month just to be there, plus the tipping fees. Fast forward to the present, Advanced Disposal now charges $11 a month just for having the little 2-yard dumpster. And the tipping fee, that $100, less than $100 a year, has now exceeded $250 a year. And I might add that we recycle, we compost, we do not generate a lot of garbage. At greater than $250 a year, the estimated $192 per private property owner represents a savings for us. And I can't believe anybody's more frugal than we are about garbage. I researched the heck out of that. It has gone steadily up and up and up, as have fuel surcharges and all sorts of other little fees. And if you sit right down and look at it, and I did look at 10 years, month by month, and this is what I came up with. The last time this came up, Carl, I was opposed to it because we were still in the, gosh, we wouldn't save a doggone thing. Now that has changed.
And one of the things, to address your question, which I think is a very pertinent one, Carl, one of the things that we had discussed, and it had come up several times, had to do with the, what Jeff, I can't remember his last name, Jeff from Johnson from Going Garbage, we surmised that there would be an increase in the recycling, which we think would be obviously a benefit to the environment in general if people recycled. And now, Going Garbage has that single stream recycling, which is the best thing that's ever happened. You don't have to separate the paper from the other stuff. That might even enhance the amount of recycling that's actually picked up in Liberty Grove. In addition to that, most people who have a one-on-one with Going would actually have a savings because of the volume that Going Garbage would be able to pass the savings on to the consumer that way. I know ours is about $320 a year with Going, and this would be a savings as well. And that's anecdotal, so I don't have statistics on other people saving money that way, but I think it might, as to Nancy's point as well.
Mr. Chairman, can I make an?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. Excuse my voice. And in reference to the resident $192 a year, and buttressing your comment, I have 2 60-gallon pickup carts there, one for garbage, one for recycling. And my wife and I are religious on the recycling stuff, so that's full practically. They pick up once a week, and we pay them $120 a quarter, so it's basically $40 a month. So that's, almost $500 a year. 480.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's another thing to look at here. as we progress into the future, I think we're going to most likely see more garbage accumulation, plus more recycling accumulation. And I think this gives us an opportunity to do some preemptive management of that situation that's probably going to arise. And I keep harping back to the point, if we're going to come under, I think, a great deal of pressure in this community, considering the growth to the south of us. It's going to naturally spill north, and with that comes all sorts of things, garbage and recycling being one of them. So, I guess I'd like to think ahead. Basically, we run a business not within the town, and we utilize that business as garbage collection, so this is gonna up our cost, $192, but I think it's well worth it. Then I won't have to carry garbage in the car, that's another plus. Anybody else want to make a comment?
Janet, is the contract that we have with Going Now, that we have those dumpsters at the facility for people from Liberty Grove, like it's like $25,000 a year, does that go away?
Yeah, that's the
So that's an
question I had.
offset as well?
Well, it's not an offset, but what it does is it gives us 25,000 more in our budget.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah.
It doesn't offset the.
savings.
It doesn't, it's not passed on to the consumer, but it's at least in the pockets of the taxpayers in a different way.
In a different
I
way.
had the exact same question. I called to ask her, so does that go away? Because I wouldn't be in favor of paying that and paying on my tax bill for the big recycling bin.
Well, that's why I think I put on here, did I put on here? If you don't want to take recycling, there's a reduction in these annual costs, but it isn't much.
Yeah,
The
it's only like,
residential goes down $24, and the commercial goes down, what, $36 or $45?
48.
And then you'd have to keep the recycling site open over there for people to haul their recycling.
And again, this is anecdotal, but when the Parks and Property Committee had looked into, yet again, years ago, putting some dumpsters in 3 locations to limit that, it was, as predicted, it was amazing how fast those dumpsters were just used by God knows who else, whether they were, residents who didn't have their own service or, and so there seems to be a need, even from that small perspective, to do this. And I agree with John. I think being able to provide a civic service where the volume will bring down the cost to individuals is exactly what a communal service should do.
I have a couple of questions, because there's gonna be a lot of work, background work, to do this. What we did before was we sent out that questionnaire, do you want this or not? Okay, what they're proposing, there's no choice. You're gonna take garbage service, and it's either gonna be bags or cans. Is that what we're all understanding here?
yes.
Okay. Because, and I can give you like the scenario of what is gonna have to happen next, but there will have to be, some kind of communication with every property owner that has improvements on their property of $50,000 or more, to make sure that somebody lives there. There could be somebody that has a horse barn on their property, and what we're gauging these numbers by is improvements of $50,000 or more.
How was this originated? By Going Garbage?
Yeah.
They came up with this.
Right. When we did this before, we asked for bids from other companies. Waste Management wouldn't,
Yeah.
and Advanced Disposal, their price was much higher with less service. We didn't even contact them again.
And just so everybody is aware, if you go down to those highlights, Bud confirmed with the Department of Revenue that this is a special charge on the tax bill. It does not count against the levy.
Right. I think that was facilitated by Act 10 a couple of years
Yep.
ago.
And, you know, like you were talking about your service and how you're going to save money and whatever. Somebody, Carl, and he's gonna save money by having it this way. A regular, every week pickup of trash only would run somebody about $300 a year at the roadside. My service, where I get every other week service right now, I will save $70 a year and get weekly service and my
And
recycling
recycling, yeah.
pickup. So, everybody's gonna see a savings.
Go ahead.
Asked to speak on this, but it comes up now because I just experienced it, but I use going and I've used it forever. And it's a great deal, but when, the only thing that might come up was people that take vacations and extended leaves, because then you can stop your service and there's no charge. This one would keep going on, but
Right.
it's, you know.
Well, you're right, and there will be a lot of second homeowners who are not, yeah.
And that's all calculated into their price.
Carol.
I also did not say I was gonna speak, but I brought this up briefly after a previous meeting.
Carol, you're either gonna speak
Okay.
up or go to the microphone.
Okay, sorry. Well, something I brought up when this was brought up a couple times ago, Going refuses to service our house because of our driveway. So, and now there are, 1, 2, 3, 4, a new house, there are about 5 homes back there. And I live almost a mile back, and there's someone that lives further, and they refuse service. So I don't know what we would do in that case. It's something to think about, because I'm sure we're not the only people. And to pull those trash bins a mile down the road, or, you know, we don't,
But now, wouldn't
But
they be
the option of the
obligated?
bags would probably be,
and where would,
Wouldn't going be obligated to?
They're on a private road. Going isn't obligated to drive down any private road. And you would need to understand the reason that they don't wanna drive down their road.
All right, but then you're saying that Carol would have that on her tax bill but not have the service?
they would have the bags that they can drop off 24/7.
She can take bags or she can do the cans, but she's gonna have to figure out what's gonna work for her.
Yeah.
Actually,
What is it that you do now, Carol?
we actually have advanced disposal. We have one at the kitchen, our commercial kitchen. We did have, we've had some issues with Going garbage. They're not real flexible about things in any way, shape, or form. So that's been an issue for us. They did do it for a while when they had a smaller vehicle. And so they came for a long time, and then they just decided they weren't gonna do it anymore. I mean, we had garbage from them for probably 10 years, and then they just decided we're not doing it anymore.
So wouldn't you think that in a situation like this, that there could be some give that Going would make now that they've got the possibility of getting service for the entire town, to say, now, what can you do for situations like that?
And I'm not asking for special, I'm just
No,
telling you that
no,
it
there
may
must-
be an issue with other people around too that have,
Exactly. And here's
terrible
where I
long
think there
gravel
might be
driveways.
options.
I would think we could make it part of the agreement that they service all accounts that have an accessible road, be it a public road or a private road.
Keyword
Unless,
accessible.
Exactly, define as accessible. His out is offering the bags.
Do you
Well,
want
that's
them
true.
to come back?
we would love it. And I'm speaking also for other, there's a new home coming in back
Yeah.
there. And there's also been, Jamie Anderson has moved
When
in
you say
recently.
it's
She takes her bags to her son's house, but, you know, as we maybe get more people there, you know, I would love it. And they did do it for a long time, and we, you know, FedEx comes back there, UPS comes back there, the fuel truck comes back there, and, you know, but but Going has refused. So that's just as a,
Make it part of the
Side note.
agreement.
I would think so too, John. I don't see why we couldn't. I mean,
Yeah,
and
it
maybe
makes sense
set
to
up
me.
some criteria for what accessible is,
Yep.
to know that, you know, we don't want to, we don't want them to have to do anything that jeopardizes and puts them in a kind of liability, but at the same time, there might be an option to make that part of the,
maybe another option would be to have a larger dumpster and recycling bin for private road residents at the end of the road.
That's a thought. Sure, say it.
Fill that thing.
Once again, more anecdotal knowledge, I'm exactly the same situation, because my driveway's a mile long in there. We got 3 houses on our driveway, 3 houses on the neighboring driveway. I'm the only full year resident on our driveway, and there's 1 full year resident on the other driveway. So they would be paying all this. Going garbage originally came back to my house, and I paid them $8 a month extra, which I thought was an absolute steal. But then they came and they said, look, you know, you got a pothole here and there, and we're gonna wreck our trucks driving down here, so they made me, you know, bring the bins out to the 42. And thankfully, I have a good relationship with Chris Voigt, so he lets me keep my bins there. But without that help from Chris, you know, it couldn't be done, because you gotta keep them hidden. I don't want the people coming off the ferry
right.
seeing the bin sitting there and dropping the garbage off.
And something screened where it could be collective, but it's screened enough so that it's not as obvious from the road, might be a solution as well for,
One of the problems would still be that the end of the road there is some other property
Right.
oh, yeah.
You know, so, I mean, it's my brother-in-law, but he doesn't have to have my dumpsters on his land, and as well as all the other people, he doesn't need to have that. I mean, it is just something to think about. It's an issue for us, and it's, you know, obviously for a few
I
other.
think one thing to do here is have Janet communicate back to Going Garbage with these concerns and get the response.
Yeah.
And one other anecdotal, I'm gonna be forced to clean the garage to find a spot for these things.
About time.
Yeah, well, I know.
We've already figured
Now you
it out.
sound like my other half.
All the bags and bags that have recyclables in them that we take
Yeah.
in once every 2 months, well, that's where we'll put them.
Well, Kathy,
Well, when would we need to start cleaning out our garage for this, if this were to go through?
in my case, as soon as I happen to mention this, I'm in trouble.
It wouldn't start till January 1st.
Okay.
However, I can ask these questions to Going and bring this back at our next meeting if that's what you want to do.
I think
I would
that's-
think so.
yeah.
But we need to move on it because there's a lot of background
Oh, yeah.
stuff that has to take place.
I'll move that we continue to pursue the garbage collection in Liberty Grove by Going Garbage, and that we delve further into questions about private roads and other scenarios that might come up before we finalize any kind of arrangement.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. I'm assuming at the next meeting we'll have that. Good. Okay, number 14, approve Julia Kingsbury as an election worker.
She's our new part-time office person, and we need another election worker for next Tuesday.
And the first day on the job, guess what was told to her?
I did,
Yep.
I did.
So moved.
Second.
Now, wait a minute. Let's do a formal.
I'll make a motion to approve Julie Kingsbury as an election worker.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Consider operator license.
Okay. We have an operator license request. It's a new one. Person's name is Dylan Rex. I gave everybody a copy of a request from his employer. As I always do with all new applicants, we do a Wisconsin court background check. And the background check from WeCourt came up, he has had his second DUI in 2016, which he said he did. He has a breathalyzer on his car, he's, being a good boy. But also on his application, he has that it asks, have you been convicted of a felony, and he has possession with intent. And that was in 2014.
Possession with intent?
His employer is encouraging you to issue him this operator license.
When was the last infraction?
2016.
16.
And so the 2014 was the first, his second DUI was the 2016?
Well, 14 was the,
Felony.
Possession with
Felony.
intent, yeah.
when was the first DUI?
Probably at the same time,
Oh,
I'm guessing.
okay.
Oh, yeah, it was at the same time. Because that one showed up on WeCourt.
Well, in, were it not for Blake and Lauren's testimonial, it would be difficult. But at the same time, it seems that they, as the employer, make a strong case in that what he did in the past will not be repeated despite the second offense there 2 years ago. And I'm inclined to allow it to happen.
Second.
That wasn't a motion.
That- Was that a motion?
I also,
No,
I
it was
also
no
want to
motion.
point out, this isn't, he's working at the Fireside. Fireside is not what I would consider a tavern. He's working at a restaurant, and the restaurant has a bar,
Yeah.
so. And if that matters any, I don't know, but
Is he working at the restaurant or is he tending bar?
he's tending bar at the restaurant. So, what do they close at 8 or something like that, 8, 9 o'clock, and he's done for the night. It's not like they're open till 2 and shooing people out.
There was an instance where we had an operator's license where someone had had a DUI. And we said, okay, I'm only going on that as well, I remember that one.
Go ahead.
I'm uncomfortable with it. A DUI is one thing, but 2 DUIs and a felony in 4 years' time makes me nervous. I'd like to at least see him totally clean for 5 years before he is issued an operator's license. And I say that with reluctance because I understand that, it's difficult to find work and it's difficult to find workers, but I can't in good conscience support that.
Janet, do we have a provision that a license is automatically suspended with a DUI?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Once they're issued, they're issued.
that might be
You
something
can't
to
make it
consider.
conditional then.
I don't think so. Never,
Well, why couldn't we make it conditional?
I think there is procedures to revoke one.
Oh, okay.
I
What if we brought him in here and interviewed him?
They actually asked if he wanted to come in here, or if, you know, because the owners couldn't. And it was thought that maybe he, because here's a person who's trying to rebuild, and to sit and listen to negative may not be the best thing for rebuilding. So, if you wanted him to come in, you know, bring him in the next meeting, and I'm sure he would, if that's what you wanna do. I don't know that I'd do it in public, but.
Closed session meeting?
I don't know
that's
if
a
that
reason
qualifies
a
for,
closed
well,
session.
it doesn't qualify for closed session.
I think there is one provision in closed session to discuss something that would be embarrassing, or there is something.
There is a provision
Yep.
like that,
There is.
which would be detrimental or.
Right,
Similar.
right. It's not used real often, but it's there.
You know, having the operator's license is one thing, that's your job. How then you get in the car or do something to earn a DUI is sort of off the job. Now, whether there's a correlation between being around alcohol, serving it, and then being tempted by it and getting in the car and being more prone to DUIs, I don't know. I don't know if,
Well, you can't drink on the job and then get in his car and go home, because the
Well,
machine won't
you
work.
know that, he was caught twice.
twice.
He was doing it more than twice.
Yeah, he was caught twice, yeah. I kind of like, I would be more comfortable and follow Bob's suggestion to maybe see if he would be willing to. I think seeing somebody and,
What are we gonna ask?
Yeah.
What are we gonna ask him?
Ask him positive stuff,
yeah, make it positive.
and then see what kind of feeling you get on his reactions. You know, even though if he, I'm not saying this would, as a reason, but he can still do the job, what he's doing, bartending, if someone with a license or the owner is
Is on the premises.
It's on
yeah.
premises within sight.
Exactly.
So it's not that he can't do it without the license.
Exactly. You don't need to, as long as you're of age and as long as there's an operator with a license on the premises, you could do the job. Just exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. So what does he gain by it?
Yeah, it's a good question too. It might be that there are occasions where there isn't an operator on the premises that way. Maybe that's the only thing I could think of from a logistical point of view.
Right, if Lauren isn't on the floor, Blake, is back in the kitchen.
And you're supposed to be within sight.
Right, you have to be able to see the person,
Yeah.
so if there would ever be a time when Lauren couldn't be there, then there's no visual.
And so logistically, it must be a lot easier to operate that business, as busy as it might be, to have him not have to worry about somebody in view, Blake or whoever else has an operator's license at the fireside.
Well, I'd like to hear why he thinks he needs one.
There'd be a reason to talk to him.
Yeah. That's where I'd start.
Somebody needs to make a motion.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we invite, what is his name?
Dylan Rex.
Yeah, Dylan Rex, to a meeting with the board to discuss why he feels he needs a operator's license and any other questions the board may have.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Okay, going on. Correspondence.
We have the mandatory zoning ordinance having been passed by the county board relating to farm markets, roadside stands, and retail sales and tasting rooms for breweries, wineries, and fruit and vegetable / cheese processing facilities in non-commercial zoning districts. This has been passed. The water is safe to drink at our public water places. The tests for coliform and nitrates has been completed. Everything came back absent and safe. Tomorrow, in the Chambers Room at the Government Center, will be a RPC meeting, and Mr. Peter Corden is on the docket for a conditional use permit to construct a 5,700 square foot trade and contractor building to be used as a marine repair facility at 10701 Old Stage Road. Notice from Land Services.
Yeah, you can't keep.
There are text amendments being sponsored for public hearing regarding short-term rentals of residential dwellings. There's a bunch of changes that have come up on that, and they will tentatively be scheduled for public hearing either July 19th or August 2nd. Another mandatory zoning ordinance, Door County zoning, became effective May 22nd. This is in relation to site condominiums, detached secondary dwelling units, residential lots in conservation subdivisions, and various amendments to Chapter 9 to ensure consistency with state statutes. A memo from the Highway Department that they're working on Q between Dane in Ephraim and Woodcrest in Liberty Grove. They're gonna be milling, I believe it's milled off already, and repaving to be completed by June 28th. We have received a check, or are going to be receiving a check from Charter Communications on our franchise fee of $3,039. That's it.
Future meetings.
I gave you
We may not be having any.
Anyway, I got my pen. The 12th, special election for the Senate seat, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Parks, 9 a.m. at the Women's Club in Ellison Bay. Utilities, 4:30 here at the hall in
We'll meet
the
in the-
conference room.
Yeah,
in the library commission at 1 o'clock that day as well, bud.
Got that one. And Sister Bay Utilities, 7:30 in the morning on the 12th. The 13th is the Plan Commission, 7 o'clock.
That actually is the public informational or public input on the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, but you're not gonna be able to do that at this, and do the CUP.
No,
So I took it off the calendar on the website,
okay,
and I sent an email to everybody saying, think about a different day. Maybe we can do it the last Wednesday of the month
okay.
and still keep the hearing on the day in July that we can,
Yeah, yeah,
The 18th.
yeah.
July 25th. is-
25th.
yeah. Okay.
Okay. Fire Board on the 19th at 9 AM or 8 AM.
8 a.m.
Board on the 20th, 7 o'clock. Service Club meets here at the hall at 6:30. Tourism Zone has their annual meeting in Bailey's Harbor at 9 AM. Shredding and recycling here at the Town Hall parking lot, 9 to 1 on the 23rd.
23rd of
June. Plan Commission on the 27th. Wednesday, July 4th, hall closed. Meeting date. What are your thoughts on that one? Canceling that meeting or moving it?
We'll have to see what it looks like, I suppose.
To be determined?
To be determined.
What's coming over the horizon?
Yeah.
And that takes us up to the first part of July, and keeping in mind that the Board of Review is August 22nd from 1 to 3.
I'm going to suggest that the next board meeting, because we're going into closed session, begin at 6:30 then.
On June 20th?
Yeah.
6:30.
We'll convene the regular board and then go to closed session.
Yeah.
6:30 on the 20th.
Yeah.
That would be it.
Okay, before I move to adjourn, I have a quote from Hannah More. I have no idea who Hannah More is, but, end quote, "Obstacles are those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off the goal." I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.